Thank you for joining me on another Walk With Me program. I'm Tyler Burgess of Eugene, Oregon, sharing my photos and sketchbook of New Zealand. Welcome to my sketchbook. This was my first day in Auckland, New Zealand, January 10th, 2014. I did the coast-to-coast walk from the Pacific to the Tasman Sea. So I made little sketches as I went along. It was about 9 miles. This is a well-marked urban walk across the city. I was born and raised on a cattle ranch in Wyoming, so I always take note when I see something from home. As you can see, the walk starts along the harbor and there's a kids' library. This beautiful urban walk takes you through several parks and through a university. The native population, called the Maori, lived in these hills, and here's a monument to one of the chiefs. There had been a farm here, and it was donated to the city and kept as a farm. And at the end of the walk, I dipped my toe in the Tasman Sea, just for fun. And this is a kiwi mural. Ta-da! Then I took the bus out to this little town called Thames that was so charming. I had a savory muffin, which I hadn't had before. I love these old cottages. These were gold miners' cottages. This lovely couple invited me to spend the night with them. We had common friends whom I had met when I was walking through Germany a couple years ago. Then I did a 3-day bicycle trip on the Hauraki Trail. On the bicycle trip, I stopped at this old mine, which is now in ruins, but it was a big thing at one time. I rented a bicycle from a company for 3 days, and they made reservations for me at different places to stay. And I just took a few clothes and had a great time. This bike trip is part of a Rails to Trails project. So I'm riding on an old railway, and they had a company, as I said, who would make your reservations and rent your bicycle for the trip. This is the license plate on the
van for the Wahi Gold Mine Tour. This is the periodic table for gold and the silver in the periodic table.
At the end of the tour, I got to hold 1 troy ounce of gold and a slab of silver.
They let you hold it at the end. Troy ounce of gold and a little slab of silver and a little slab of silver. That's what comes out of 100-ton of rock that goes up in one of those trucks from the gold mine every once in a while. All day, all night. I learned that a troy ounce of gold is the same standard that the Romans used, because when measurements turned to grams or milligrams, they wanted to keep the same standard across the ages for the metals. So it's not a gram or a milligram, it's a troy ounce, based on the Roman measurement. This is worth about $1,320 on today's market. This is more of my rail trail.
This is the old tram line for taking out the gold. It's now a hiking trail. It's beautiful, as you can see.
Then we went to a beach, hot water beach. Spent the afternoon in the hot water sand. When the tide is low, right below the sand, hot water bubbles up. Lucky, you get there at just the right time. Well, I saw a parrot. They have parrots there. Some of them were set loose as pets.
And these are relics of old mines, of old technology in mining.
Saw probably 12 heron. I keep a little diary as I go along. I used to write my diary, but it was so boring. And now I do little sketches, and it's far more interesting. So this is what I use for coloring. These are watercolor crayons. And then I'll break them up for traveling. I break them up in little pieces and I put them in a travel case. So it makes it really easy to carry them. And then I have this small paintbrush that, as you can see, it has water in it. So it's nice to travel with.
I went into the Watomo glowworm caves with the group, and we did rappelling and all this really fun stuff.
The Hobbit was filmed here, and some of the Lord of the Rings series was built for that movie.
This was the movie set for the Hobbit village in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. The first set they built was just very temporary and fell apart in a couple of years, so they had to rebuild it for the second movie. And what we're looking at here is just a movie set. All these things are glued in place. The flowers are real, the vegetation is real, but nothing's behind the doors, and they're built to a very small scale, except Bilbo Baggins' home.
Pond. think I just made it look less so like a pond. When they filmed the movie, they had to take all the frogs out of the pond. They were so noisy. And they brought them back afterwards. Anyway, good enough. And this is the Green Dragon Inn from up on top of the hill. One of the reasons they picked this site was these trees right here. These two big trees were perfect. It had a pond. And then also it's way out in the countryside, so there are really no electrical lines visible. And that was really appealing to the director.
And at the top of the hill is Bilbo Baggins' Hobbit hole. And we can stand in front of the door, but there's nothing behind it. Anything that was filmed inside was done on a set inside in Wellington, New Zealand. It looks like moss or lichen that's grown on this post, but it's actually just green goo glued on there to make it look old. Looking up at Bilbo Baggins' Hobbit hole underneath the tree is exactly as it is described in the book The Hobbit.
Then this is the Green Dragon Inn sign, and this is looking back up the hill towards Bilbo Baggins' Hobbit hole here at Bag's End.
At the Green Dragon Inn, we had our choice of ciders, so it's very fun to go inside.
This is the Maori Cultural Center.
After Hobbiton, I went to Maori Cultural Center, and they treated us to a dinner, and you will see how they greeted us and what they wore. It was all very interesting.
These were their typical designs. You saw carved and painted in different places. They're symbols of their afterlife culture.
And behind the scenes, we have a good old John Deere tractor. I see them all over the world. Our guide is a Maori woman who is boiling eggs for us in their geysers, as was traditionally done by the Maori. They cooked their food in these hot springs. And there was a big dinner being cooked here in the hot springs as well. Kiwi's a nocturnal bird, but we could go in and see it.
This was a really pretty town I stayed in, Onakune, and this is the Tongariro Mountain, 8,200 feet. And you can see there's a volcanic vent over here. Oh, and this was my wonderful canoe ride. I took a 5-day canoe ride down the Wanganui River. It's really fabulous experience.
We put in our boat at the Blue Duck Cafe, and the name of the town is right here. The Wakahoro village was our input.
Went with a guide who owned all his equipment and a local family, dairy farmers, 2 parents and their 5 children. Oh, they were delightful. It was really fun to be with some local people while I traveled. That was a great treat.
This is the Wanganui River, and my job was to sit in front of the canoe and relax.
Here's one of our campsites along the river. Our guide pointed out this little garden on the tree branch, so I called it Jamie's Garden for some reason. Brighter. Then at the end of the canoe trip, I asked everybody in the family to draw a picture for me. So this was my totem. And then William, who is 8, this is his picture. Isaac is 17, he did this. Emily was 12, that was hers. And Madeline did another flower. And then Louis, who was 16, this was his Maori camp. It's a food house for food, and they would also sleep in there in a tree. And then the parents also drew me a little picture. Well, the mother drew this picture of us all sitting around the camp table eating our breakfast, and then our guide made a sketch of us on the river. And then the father, Steve Poole, wrote, "Great traveling with you, Tyler. You're always welcome to visit us in Taranaki." So that was a really nice thing to say. And then Maria was his wife, and she said, "Lovely to travel with you. Your stories and experiences are so interesting." So that was fun. I guess I made it fun for them too. I really enjoyed the family.
Now I'm traveling on to Wellington. Went through this little town that was cute. This is downtown Wellington.
Then I went to a museum in Wellington, a big local museum. This is a greenstone weapon. This was a whalebone. Awesome. And the next day we went to Wellington on a bus and took the ferry across the Cook Strait through the Queen Charlotte Sound to Wellington. I was thinking maybe we could use some blue in the sky. We had very good weather. Sometimes it's kind of rough on that crossing. But it's a huge ferry. Carried the double trailer trucks from one island to the other. It's the only way they could transport things across that strait from one island to the other.
This is the harbor in Wellington, and in the distance you see our huge ferry we're going to take to the South Island. Thank you for joining me, Tyler Burgess, in another Walk With Me program.